Welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars. Before we wade into the most delicate moment to ripple across Turkish showbiz this week, remember to subscribe, tap like, and join the channel so you never miss the softest confessions and the loudest truths from the stars you love. Because today, we follow a heartbeat that slipped past the noise, a sentence that blurred the border between private memory and public reality, and we watch how it changed everything for Alina Boz and Alp Navras. It began as a routine press stop, the kind of midday media round where answers feel rehearsed and flashbulbs perform a tired dance. Alp sat beneath a wash of studio light, impeccably composed, answering questions about an upcoming project with the measured calm he's known for. Journalists traded turns. The room hummed. Somewhere in that familiar rhythm, a reporter did what reporters sometimes do. She asked a question that sounded simple but carried 1,000 unasked ones within it. She said a single name. Alina Boz. The room did not merely quiet, it paused, as if even the cameras knew to hold their breath. Alp did not flinch or fumble. What he did was more dangerous. He waited. He let silence be the first part of his answer. Then, in a voice that was steady but softer than his usual press cadence, he offered a truth that no one could have scripted. "I still love her," he said, not with bravado or theatrics, but with the kind of candor that arrives only when there is nothing left to polish. Time faltered. The clip rushed online within minutes, replayed frame by frame, slowed down by fans who have learned to read meaning into every blink and inhale. Words were transcribed, intonation weighed, eyes studied as if a gaze could confess more than a sentence ever could. Conversations erupted. Threads unfurled. People remembered interviews from another year, a song choice on a live, a smile on a red carpet, the way hands almost touched in a backstage corridor. It was as if the past unspooled itself and demanded to be seen again. Speculation thrived in the vacuum that follows a revelation. Was this a spur-of-the-moment confession or something carefully considered? Was it nostalgia, sharpened by the stress of promotion and the exhaustion that often makes honesty slip loose? Or was it a sign of a feeling that had never really left, now daring to breathe in daylight? The public didn't agree, because the public rarely does. What they did do, en masse, was watch. And neither of them immediately added more. Alp did not clarify or retract. Alina did not comment. There were no calls from managers, no grand statement from a studio spokesperson on behalf of anyone. Silence draped itself over the confession and, paradoxically, made it louder. In that quiet, meaning multiplied. People projected hopes and set boundaries. Everyone seemed to want to protect someone, even as they asked for more. Fans split into two honest camps, both born from care. One side treated Alp's words as a rare act of courage, a refusal to let fame turn a person into a careful puppet. They called it dignity, sincerity, a rosary bead of truth threaded through an industry of performance. The other side urged restraint. They warned that memory can paint even the complicated parts with a forgiving brush. They insisted that honoring the past doesn't always mean reopening its doors. Both sides were right in their way, and that is perhaps why the debate did not cool. Then, without a caption that named names or a comment that invited gossip, Alina answered in a language that is older than press statements. She posted a black and white photograph. The frame held an empty shoreline. The tide had crept up to meet a set of footprints and was in the midst of softening their edges, as if tenderness itself were a wave. Underneath, she wrote, some truths arrive without footsteps. No tags, no timestamps, no arrows pointing anywhere but inward. The picture said what the moment required: grace, privacy, and an acceptance that certain things simply are. The internet did not agree on what the image meant, but it agreed that it meant something. There were essays and comments sections about ephemerality and permanence, about how love can be both a place you lived and a sea that reshapes the shore when it returns. Friends of Alina, speaking quietly and with care, described her response as exactly the kind of posture she is known for. She acknowledged the past, they whispered, without surrendering her present. She honored feeling while guarding her craft. It was a line walked with balance. On the other side of the industry's doors, writers' rooms and producer meetings perked up. You could almost hear the pencil taps, the drink stirrers, the sliding of whiteboards. People began to imagine them together again on screen, not as a glossy rehash of what once enchanted viewers, but as two fully formed adults reckoning with love, truth, and the difficult work of growth. Thinkers started drafting characters with fault lines and wonder, with those specific shades of humor and restraint that both Alina and Alp bring when material respects them. It wasn't just a reunion fantasy. It was a creative itch. Fans eagerly filled in the space. They clipped old scenes and stitched them to recent interviews, as if stitching could bind years. They created timelines charting every public glance and private rumor, not to invade, but to narrate. They laid music beneath edits that swelled inside in all the right places. They built an archive of feeling, a map through which others could travel. In the absence of official explanation, people turned to story. And yet, after the fervor peaked, Alp returned to his own page with a statement that neither stoked flames nor poured water. He kept it small. He kept it calm. Sometimes truth arrives before we give it a plan, he wrote. I respect the roads that shape me, and I wish only good to those who have walked beside me. It was not an apology, not a denial, not a strategic pivot designed to relocate blame. It was the textual equivalent of an exhale. He offered context without insisting on interpretation, and left room for everyone else to breathe, too. There is a reason moments like this hold attention longer than any press headline can. They remind us that behind the practiced smiles, behind the velvet ropes and sponsor deals and choreographed interviews, there are still people who trip over the same human truths as everyone else. You can dress feelings in designer, but they keep their own calendar. Love, memory, and whatever follows them exist on a loop. They resurface when they please. Sometimes they whisper at dawn with the sensitivity of a tide. Sometimes they burst in light, the way Alp's sentence did, and demand to be heard. In private circles, those who know them say little, which speaks volumes. According to a friend of a friend variety of rumor, Alina spent the evening after her post not doom scrolling, but cooking with music turned low, letting routine rescue her from noise. As for Alp, whispers suggest he ran late into the night, as if motion could offer clarity. These are only whispers, of course. But they are believable ones, because they align with the people the world thinks it knows, Alina with her measured poise, Alp with his steady determination. Meanwhile, the industry continues to dream. A streaming platform executive allegedly asked for pitches built around them. Veterans talked about older movies that handled second chances with mature eyes. Younger writers traded references to contemporary love stories that don't end at the first kiss. The creative impulse is simple: the world wants to watch two talented people explore the very terrain that an unguarded sentence revealed. Not as gossip. As art. What has been most striking is the public's willingness to hold nuance, at least for now. Many have admitted that they do not know what should happen next. They support Alina's right to her quiet and her focus, her work and her boundaries. They admire Alp's bravery, while also acknowledging that courage is no guarantee of a reunion. They have accepted that sometimes the greatest respect you can show a story is to let it breathe without outcome. This is rare. And it feels precious. Of course, there are those who have already written the ending for them, happy or otherwise. People will always write endings. But what lingers after the frenzy has softened is something much gentler. It is the recognition that love is not just an event in time. It is a landscape that two people once traveled, and may never travel again, and yet it remains real. You can leave a place and still speak of its light. Perhaps that is why the photograph struck the chord it did. Footprints softened by tide. Because it did not declare loss or victory, only movement. It suggested that truth does not always stomp forward with boots and banners. Sometimes it arrives like water, hardly seen, and it changes the shape of things without announcing itself. Alina's caption caught that. Some truths arrive without footsteps. And yet we feel them under our skin all the same. In the days that followed, the edits and retrospectives became almost tender. Viewers stopped hunting for clues and started revisiting the work itself, relishing the scenes where their skill met good writing, the charm they brought to a moment with a raised eyebrow or a delayed smile. The montages turned into love letters, not to a rumored past, but to the craft that both of them have devoted years to. It was as if the audience remembered that admiration for an artist can exist without claiming their life. Alp's team made no additional moves. Alina's, either. The world adjusted to a new normal where a line of honesty floats in the air like a song you can hear if you listen closely enough. People will forget the exact day and time. They will not forget the feeling. A press room paused. A confession landed. A photograph answered. And everything that came after was one long conversation about how to carry feeling with dignity. So now the question returns to you in a form that is both simple and impossible. Did Alp open a door to a second chance, or did he honor a memory that needed to be spoken aloud one last time? Is this a threshold or a farewell echoed kindly? No one can answer that except the two people at the center. And if their recent choices tell us anything, it is that they will decide in their own time, in their own language, and perhaps without footsteps. Whatever happens, the moment will endure as a reminder that even under the brightest studio lamps and the most careful public routines, the human heart continues its unscripted work. It makes and unmakes promises. It remembers, it softens, it learns. Sometimes it slips and speaks, and when it does, the world may freeze for a beat, stunned by a truth that refuses to be packaged into neat headlines. That is not scandal. That is life. If you've stayed with us this far, thank you for listening with the patience the story deserves. Share what you felt when you heard his words and saw her image. And tell us, gently, what you believe should follow, if anything at all. Your voice shapes how we discuss our artists, and your care can be the difference between noise and understanding. We will keep watching for what matters, not for what prize. We will follow projects that let them grow, whether together or apart. We will celebrate performances that reveal new colors in their range, the ones that always remind us why their names echo the way they do. And we will be here when the next whisper arrives. Until then, stay close to Whispers of Turkish Stars. Tap like, subscribe, and hit join if you want to be first in line when truth glints again on the surface of all this glitter. Because in a world that applauds the loudest rooms, the tender things often travel quietly, and those are the ones we promise to bring you. Even in the strongest spotlight, some truths prefer to speak softly. And when they do, they last.